The Portland Rose Festival climaxes its 1987 celebration with IndyCar racing today. The Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 from Portland International Raceway on a beautiful Sunday afternoon with only a very few scattered high clouds. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Newber. Race number 5 in the IndyCar Trail for 1987. We've had 4 different winners in the first 4 races. The winner at Long Beach was Mario Andretti. Phoenix was won by Roberto Guerrero. The Indianapolis 500 taken, of course, by Unser Jr. And just 2 weeks ago at Milwaukee, the winner was Michael Andretti. And from the looks of the starting lineup today, we could have a 5th here this afternoon, Larry.
It's very possible, Bob. You know, on the front row, we have the same man who sat on the pole a year ago. And remember, that year ago race was the closest in contemporary Indianapolis car history. He represents a team, however, that has been struggling in 1987. Well, they have made tremendous strides toward regrouping. They've made a lot of changes. They've cut back from a 2-car to a 1-car team. And based on his career, it would not be surprising that this man is on the front row. But based on the results of 1987, it's a big eye-opener. Our man in the pits, as always, Gary Lee, is down there right now with more details on this interesting story.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon. Indeed, it's no secret the Pat Patrick Racing Team has been struggling this year. In 4 races, Kevin Cogan has yet to finish. In those same 4 races, Emerson Fittipaldi has only finished 1. In an effort to step back, regroup, and become more competitive, the feeling of 1 car was constituted for this weekend. Consequently, Kevin Cogan is setting this one out. Emerson Fittipaldi went through an extensive test last week in Riverside. Obviously, it's paid off. He's starting in the front row as the engines fire down here. The program now calls for Kevin Cogan to test at Milwaukee next week and to have both cars ready for the Meadowlands. So the 2-time world driving champion, a winner of 2 IndyCar races in his career, will be starting in the front row.
Thank you, Gary. As the engines fire up, this has been a weekend of improvement. Both Penske cars, these are PC-16s, have qualified into the top 10, and Jeff Brabham, an acknowledged strong racer on road courses, he's got a new team manager this week. He has qualified 7th fastest.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. The command has been given to start engines, and we're almost ready for the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200, brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. No matter how you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. But while you're watching these messages, think about the answer to this question, and we will have the answer in just a few minutes. Stay with us. We're at Portland International Raceway for the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. We welcome you back to Portland International Raceway, where we're just a few minutes away from the start of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 IndyCar race. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and 22 cars and drivers are ready to go. Here now is the starting lineup. Starting from pole position will be Roberto Guerrero in the number 4 True Value STP March with a new track record of 116.439 miles an hour. Outside of row number 1 will be Emerson Fittipaldi driving the number 20 Marlboro March at 116.078. In the second row will be the defending car champion, Bobby Rahal in the number 1 Budweiser True Sports Lola. Outside of row number 2, Michael Andretti, the winner of Milwaukee earlier this year in the number 18 Craco STP March. Going to row number 3, it'll be the defending champion of this race, Mario Andretti in the number 5 Hanna Auto Wash Lola. And on the outside of row number 3, driving a Penske chassis with a Chevy Ilmore engine, Danny Sullivan in the Miller American. In row number 4, with his best starting position so far this year, Jeff Brabham in the number 15 Team Valvoline Special. And on the outside of that 4th row, also with his best starting position of the year, Ludwig Heimras Jr. in the number 23 Mackenzie Lola. In row number 5 on the inside will be Rick Mears in the Penske chassis, Chevy Ilmore engine, number 8, the Pennzoil Z7. And on the outside of row number 5, Tom Sneva, originally from the Pacific Northwest, driving the number 33 Skoal Bandit March. In the 6th row will be Unser Jr., 3rd here a year ago in the number 30 Domino's Pizza March. And on the outside of that 6th row, in only his 2nd race this year, Scott Brayton in the number 91 Amway Auto Style March. And going to row number 7 now, it's number 11 Jeff McPherson and 55 Jose Legarza. Going to row number 8 on the inside, Ari Luyendyk, and outside Fabrizio Barbosa. Making up row number 9, Johnny Rutherford and Randy Lewis. In the 10th row, it's Dick Simon and Derek Daly, who crashed during a practice session earlier this weekend. And in the 11th row, it's Dale Coyne and Rick Miskiewicz. You can see the field moving through the west end of the racetrack through turns number 3, 4, and 5. And next time around, we could get a start of this race.
Well, Bob, the only surprising man up there near the front is Fittipaldi, but other than him, most of the guys who have been strong all year are back up front again. Here's Portland.
And the answer to our question that we asked you just a few minutes ago, the only driver to start all 4 races this year and to finish all 4 is Jeff McPherson. He was 10th at Long Beach, 13th at Phoenix, and 8th at both Indianapolis and Milwaukee. So the answer to the question is Jeff McPherson, the driver of car number 11.
And Bob, picking up on the point that Gary Lee was making at the top of the show, the only car to not finish and enter all 4 of the previous races, Kevin Kogan.
Now we have an in-car camera traveling with Jeff Brabham today, the Valvoline in-car cam, and there you can see the perspective as Jeff Brabham has it as the car moves through the east end of the racetrack now through turns number 8 and 9, approaching the main straightaway.
Jeff Brabham has qualified 7th on the grid. That is his best qualifying run of the year, and it was a strong 7th qualifying run. They have a new team manager, Tony Sekeli. Tony comes with a very tremendous repertoire. The resume of Sekeli is strong, and he may make a difference in this team.
And there you can see the raceway here at Portland is 1.915 miles in length. There are 9 turns, 5 of them right-hand turns and 4 left. There is a chicane, and the back stretch is 2,400 feet and the front stretch 2,700 feet in length.
And Bob, some of the drivers will tell you this is almost like a modified oval. It's a very interesting road course because of that. There is only one real significant left-hander. Now that's one of the left-handers. That's a kink, a chicane, if you will, near the end of the longest front stretch, the longest straightaway rather on this course. But the majority of it are big sweeping right-handers, and for some people, like Tom Sneva, for instance, it drives like a modified oval.
The field now moving through turn number 2 and into number 3, and they will go around this time. Next time by, they should be getting the green flag, and this race should get underway. And there's Scott Brayton, the driver of car number 91, who starts 12th in today's grid.
Scott Brayton in the Amway Auto Care car. Now Scott has a background in road racing. Scott came up through the Formula Ford ranks, and as a matter of fact was the champion up in that Northeast division, a division that a lot of people like Michael Andretti, for instance, came from. Scott has not shown much on road courses in his IndyCar career, but he has not had that many opportunities. But he has had a solid weekend. He has been a threat for top 10 honors all weekend in qualifying and as we've gone through practice here. So Brayton may be looking forward to one of his better days in an IndyCar on a road course.
14 87 marches in the field, 186 march driven by Dale Coyne. There are 5 87 Lolas and 2 PC-16s, the Penske chassis. As far as engines are concerned, there are 15 Cosworths, 4 Chevy Ilmores, 1 stock block Chevy, and 2 Hondas.
One of the stronger runners in 1987, Arie Luyendyk, starts back in the 8th row in 15th position. So watch for that black, white trim, red numeral number 71. He may be one making a charge to the front in the early laps.
Through corner number 9 now, the pace car will be pulling off of the racetrack, and if all is well when they come down, the green flag will drop and will be underway for this 104 lap race, 200 miles, and the green flag is out and the race is on. Now they'll approach the chicane here, and it has to be single file traffic. Emerson Fittipaldi has grabbed that lead from Roberto Guerrero. Actually, not single file as they go through their double wide, but everybody through safely. Now down a short stretch and into turns 1 and 1A, with Emerson Fittipaldi still doing the leading over Roberto Guerrero. Turn number 2 now. They approach turn number 3, through it nicely. A very short straightaway. Turn number 4 and 5 as the field files through, and now they'll be approaching the 5th and 5A corners and onto the backstretch.
This is a scene that we have not seen that often in 1987, but Pat Patrick, Jim McGee and company, they must be smiling. Emerson Fittipaldi is leading this race.
Well, the team, as Gary Lee indicated to you, has been struggling somewhat in the early going, so if they could put a fine performance together here this afternoon, it would certainly be a morale booster for both Emerson Fittipaldi and the crew, and for that matter, Kevin Kogan also.
At this moment, when the white line comes across your screen right there, the start-finish line right now, Emerson Fittipaldi and Pat Patrick I'll make that correction on that. Fittipaldi leads for the first time in 1987. Kevin Cogan has led a lap, but it was in one of those scramble situations after pit stops. But Fittipaldi, for the first time this year, leads.
Guerrero is second. Bobby Rahal running third, and right behind him is Michael Andretti, who came close last year to winning this race, but ran out of fuel on the last lap, allowing his father to take the victory. He is fourth at the moment. Gary Lee in the pit area.
Interestingly enough, we saw that the actual pole position was not the driver that had been the fastest qualifier. In road racing, the driver who is fast in qualifying can elect to start inside or outside. And in this case, Roberto Guerrero threw everybody for a curve. When it was announced this morning, he had elected to start outside. That put Emerson Fittipaldi on the inside front row position. And I can tell you in the driver's meeting when it was announced, Emmo was ecstatic. So this may have been an early gift from Roberto to Emerson.
Well, it worked out well, because at the drop of the green flag, Fittipaldi did grab the lead from Guerrero going into the chicane, and Emmo has the lead still, now stretching it out to 3 or 4 car lengths over Guerrero.
To Roberto's defense, Bob, though, we've seen a series of races here this weekend at Portland, and it seemed as though he made the right decision. But Emmo must have had something up his sleeve. He felt comfortable starting where he was starting, and it proved to play right into his hand. At least that seemed to be his strong suit.
Fittipaldi looking for IndyCar win number 3. Of course, he's a two-time world driving champion, has won 2 IndyCar races on the high banks of Michigan International Speedway, and last year in the rain at Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin.
Bobby Rahal, the defending car champion. Hey, in case you're interested, remember all those slow starts he's had in years past? Well, a year ago this race, he came in 8th in points. This year he's 5th. Does that mean anything? Perhaps so.
There is Rahal running in 3rd position behind Guerrero and Emerson Fittipaldi, as they come around now to complete lap number 3 out of 104. And we're inside Jeff Brabham's car, the Valvoline race cam, as he comes down the straightaway. Now they'll be breaking it down, shifting to go into the chicane. Let's see how he handles it.
They rate this as a 9-turn course. There is not a turn, that's just a chicane. The first turn coming up is a hard right-hander, one of the hardest right-handers on the course. There's turn number 1. Then turn 1A is this little kink in the middle to another hard right-hander. That is turn 2. Coming up is the strongest left-hander on the course. There it is, turn number 3. Coming right out of this, it's a very, very flat racetrack. There's a little kink that gets a rating, turn 4. And then another right-hander. We're getting close to the long back straightaway. That's turn number 5. The curves here are very significant. You see all those yellow marks on each side of the pavement as he goes around. Now we're going around the slough on the backstretch. We call it a backstretch, but it's like a big banana bow.
And Mario Andretti and Unser Jr. are racing for position, as Mario has that 7th spot nailed down right now, but Unser Jr. right on his rear wing. The battle for 7th position. Come out of turn number 9 and onto the straightaway once again. Right ahead of them is Jeff Brabham, who is running in 6th spot.
As we look at one of the most recent generation racers, Mario, and the newest generation racers, Unser Jr. This has been a racetrack for so-called second-generation drivers. Al Jr. has led more laps here than anybody in the 3 previous years of racing here at Portland on this road course. 38% of them. Michael Andretti is second, having led 31% of the laps. Mario, you ask, and 11. He had a great deal of success, though, here in the 3 previous races. Same man has won 2. Same man who won last year. Same man in the red number 5 right there on your screen.
Mario Andretti running in 7th position. The lead continues to be held here by Emerson Fittipaldi by about 1.5 seconds over Roberto Guerrero. Bobby Rahal is running 3rd. Michael Andretti is 4th, and Danny Sullivan is in 5th position. We'll be back with more from Portland International Raceway. With Emerson Fittipaldi leading here at the 200-mile IndyCar race at Portland International Raceway. Running 2nd is Roberto Guerrero, and this man, Bobby Rahal, is 3rd. And that battle there between Guerrero and Rahal is a pretty good one at this point, as Emerson has now stretched the advantage to about 1 3/10 seconds. The average speed at the end of 5 laps was 110.89 miles an hour.
That's lapping around this facility about 62.8 or 9 seconds. And remember now, this is not a long endurance contest, 200 miles on a road course, but it's certainly not a sprint car contest either. We anticipate that the guys getting reasonable mileage will be able to do this on 2 pit stops. Remember, the range is between 70 and 75 miles per gallon, and they should be able to go 200 miles on 2 pit stops. And as we are watching Roberto Guerrero running in second, Tom Sneva has come in prematurely here, coming into pit well inside of lap number 10.
Well, this certainly is not a scheduled stop as Sneva has commenced. Tom did very well here this weekend. He had something like the 4th best practice speed at one point earlier in the weekend, but he did qualify at a reasonable pace and started this race in the 10th position, qualifying at 113.500 miles an hour. But something is wrong with that Skull Bandit, and he's come in for a pit stop.
You saw the average speed of the race a couple of seconds ago. Told you about how the lap time. We'll get back to that story. Gary Lee is now down in the Sneva pit. Gary?
Well, I'm standing here by John Anderson. John, give us an indication. What's the problem? Well, John's talking to Tom in the cockpit right now. They've taken the rear cowling off the car, checking the ignition, the spark box. So there's a conversation between the cockpit and the pit area. So we can't really get to John.
Well, Gary, we can tell you that Unser Jr. has dropped out of the race. His car has stalled at one point on the racetrack. He's unhooked the steering wheel and has climbed out of the car. And one of the early favorites, you can see the disgust on the mind of Unser Jr. He has climbed out of that car and is history already.
There you can see him coming down that backstretch. It's a partial bend in the road there. There you can see the steam coming out, smoke. It looks like he just lost an engine, and that happens very unusually and very seldom to the Shearson team. But Unser Jr., who's had a good record, he's finished 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in each of the 3 races they've had here at Portland, but not today. It's an early out for Al Jr.
That's going to be a very long walk back to the pits for Unser Jr. There's Rick Muskiewicz in car number 59, who has pulled behind the wall. So we're getting some attrition here in the early going. Tom Sneva's car has pulled back out onto the racetrack, so he perhaps can continue in this race. But Unser Jr. and Rick Muskiewicz already have joined those on the sidelines.
Yeah, and for Rick, this was one of his better opportunities, if not the best in IndyCar racing, getting on with an established team. Andy Kanapensky and John Barnes and crew do a pretty good job of putting together 2- and 3-car teams, and I'm sure that Rick was very optimistic about this weekend. He feels at home on road courses, being a former champion of the Can-Am division, but his day too ends early.
There you can see he's climbed out of the car. We'll go back out onto the racetrack and see how things are going there. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. Now has more than a 3.5-second lead over Roberto Guerrero. Emerson Fittipaldi is doing well here in the early going of this race. Guerrero still running second, followed by Ray Hall and Michael Andretti.
Bob, the pace apparently that Emo has selected as we go back to second, Guerrero. And Guerrero's got a problem. Roberto Guerrero looks like he is also out of the race. Roberto Guerrero, one of the stars of 1987. Remember all the times misfortune has frowned upon him. Has it happened again? It does look mighty terminal.
Just like at Milwaukee, when the car came down the straightaway and the smoke came pouring from the engine, so it occurs here at Portland. And the bad luck that we referred to earlier in the show when we came on the air is continuing with Roberto Guerrero. You can see the track safety crews there trying to extinguish any fire that might be present at the engine compartment. Roberto is already out of the car. Unser Jr. is out and Roberto Guerrero is out of the race with only 10 out of 104 laps completed. The dejection on the face of Roberto Guerrero, I'm sure, as he drops out. We have a good battle for 8th and 9th position here. It involves 3 cars: Ludwig Heimrath, Jose Lee Garza, and Rick Mears.
Jose Lee is the man who's done the climbing here. Jose Lee started this race in 14th. They felt they had some good things going for them this weekend. They were a little disappointed in their qualifying run, only able to start on the outside, or as Roberto shuffled the order, the inside of the 7th row, 14th fastest. But they said the signs appear to be good, and he has risen from 14th up into 8th position. Ludwig Heimrath Jr. has pretty much held his ground, as has Rick Mears. Rick Mears is the bright yellow car. And if you were with us at the start, you saw Rick. He gave himself his best opportunity to have a really good start, but everybody else seemed to catch on very rapidly. It looked like Rick had a clear shot run to the first chicane before the first turn, but it didn't work out that way. But Garza is the man who potentially is on the move in that white car in this trio.
And another team that certainly needs a good performance, the Roger Penske team with Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan this weekend. Sullivan currently running 4th, and there is Rick Mears in the number 8 Pennzoil Z7. in 9th position. Right behind Rick is the Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis 500-mile race, Fabrizio Barbaza in the Arciero car number 12.
Barbaza started in 16th position, so he too has made some progress in this race, perhaps following Rick Mears through. But Barbaza, like in Indianapolis, maybe he's on one of those uphill curves, and if they grade this one on the curve, maybe he's got another shot at yet another top 5.
We continue to watch this 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th position contest among the 4 drivers. Heimrath Jr., Garza, Mears, and Barbaza. And as we watch this, we will tell you that Emerson Fittipaldi continues to stretch out that lead. It is now up to almost 5.5 seconds. Fittipaldi leading Bobby Rahal by 5.5 seconds. There is Garza once again working on Ludwig Heimrath Jr. in turn number 4, now into turn number 5. Ludwig holding off the challenge for at least the time being. And the cars swing out onto the backstretch. There you can see Ludwig's results for 1987.
We have caught this group, by the way, about 1 minute 3 seconds. That figures out to about 109 miles per hour. And by the way, the story we tried to develop, the pace that Emerson Fittipaldi has selected, it is apparently down in the mid 61 second or minute 1 second range, or close to 112 miles an hour, and that is a full second and a half faster than this group. Gary Lee with a very dejected Unser Jr.
Well, actually, we're here in Al's pit. The debriefing continues with Dennis Swan and Doug Shearson, the car owner. It was a long hustle back for you on Shank's ponies. What happened?
Well, the Domino's Pizza Hot one was running good, and then it blew up and broke the engine bad enough that it was leaking water, and it got me wet. That's why I was trying to get out of the car in a hurry. I was thinking about driving it all the way back to the pits, just coasting, but then I looked back and I saw the water leaking all over the track, and so that's when I decided to pull it on the grass and walk back.
It has been a frustrating season, a struggle. This does not help it any.
No, it doesn't, but you know, we've been having a problem with the car handling, and we got a lot closer this weekend, and so it was a plus. Now we fell down on the mechanical end, which we were real strong, but you know, those things happen. You just when you're racing and an engine goes like that, you know, that's racing luck.
So in 2 weeks the Meadowlands, that get both the handling and the engine together, he'll be tough.
Hope so.
All right, there is Al Unser Jr. He went into this race 4th.
You want Sneva?
In the IndyCar points race, and most recently he has registered three top 5 finishes in 4 starts, with a 5th at Milwaukee. And you can see that Tom Sneva has also climbed out of his machine. And Larry, we're seeing some rather significant attrition here in the first 15 or so laps of this race.
You sure are, Bob. And picking up on what Little Al said, they have finished the second highest number of laps completed this year, 662 laps, trailing only Roberto Guerrero by 4 laps. So the people who have finished the most laps, the leader and second place, have dropped out in the first 15 laps here. And Sneva, whom we just saw as we go back up front, and Raj Fittipaldi, Sneva too has had one of his stronger road course weekends. So I'm sure that they are very deflated, because Tom is always trying to learn a lot more on road courses, and the car was working for him this week.
Emerson Fittipaldi from Sao Paulo, Brazil, leads the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 IndyCar race here at Portland. We'll be right back. Bob Jenkins along with Larry Nuber and Gary Lee back at Portland for today's 200-mile IndyCar race, and the leader is Emerson Fittipaldi, who has led all 16 laps to this point. About 5.5 seconds back is Bobby Rahal, the defending car champion, as he comes down the straightaway. And about 4.5 seconds behind Rahal is Michael Andretti. There he is, passing Randy Lewis, who is being lapped. There is Michael Andretti, who's running 3rd. And then about 1.5 seconds behind Michael, in 4th position, is Danny Sullivan. Jeff Brabham, by the way, running 5th.
Bob, we've been keeping the clocks on Emerson Fittipaldi, and I tell you, we're getting the consistency of an Edwin Moses on this guy, at least prior to 2 weeks ago when Edwin got beat. 61.6. They obviously have decided that's the pace they want to run. It's an average speed of about 112 miles an hour. You max out at maybe 155 or so on this race course. It's almost 2 miles around. It's a little less than that. But Fittipaldi, when he puts his mind to something, and if the car responds to his touch, I mean, you can take his 61.60s to the bank. A minute, 1 second, and 0.06 of a second, almost lap after lap.
And Emma with a little bit of a wiggle there, but maintains that first place position, as there is Bobby Rahal coming down the straightaway, crossing the line, completing lap number 18 in second position. There is Michael Andretti, and there is Danny Sullivan in the number 3 Penske PC16.
This is one of Danny's specialties. He kind of leans toward the ovals as opposed to, or rather, excuse me, the road courses as opposed to the ovals, although needless to say, he's done reasonably well on ovals too, winning an Indianapolis 500. Dick Simon has pulled into the pit area as we continue to watch the 4th running Danny Sullivan. You can see his 87 results have been disappointing, and there's Dick Simon as the crew consults with him to find out what their problem might be.
And Dick Simon came here with a 3-car team this weekend. Besides himself and Ludwig Heimrath Jr., he bought a 3rd car for John Richards, but his IndyCar debut didn't last very long as he crashed in about the first 10 or 15 minutes of the practice session on Friday. Let's get out to the pit area and Gary Lees with Tom Sneva.
Well, Tom Sneva, this is home country for you as an ex-school teacher and principal. Maybe some of your ex-students have been watching, but they couldn't watch too long. What put you out?
Well, with some kind of electrical problem underneath the dash, a short or something burnt some of the wires up. But unfortunately, it's going to give me a lot of time to chat with a lot of old friends in the Northwest.
Yes, so Tom Sneva, the gas man, is out of this one early.
Tom Sneva on the sidelines, as well as Unser Jr., Rick Miskiewicz, and Roberto Guerrero, as Emerson Fittipaldi continues to lead now with about a 7-second lead. So the early going of this race here at Portland has been an Emerson Fittipaldi day. Took the lead from the drop of the green flag and has held it all laps, which includes 19.
And the lead has been stretching, Bob. On lap 16, we had about 5.7 second difference between Emo and Bobby Rahal. Then it stretched to 6.9 and finally to 7.2. Now here's Jeff Brabham. We told you that Tony Chicane has joined this team. Jeff qualified in the top 10. He's rehearsed in the top 10 all weekend, knocking in the door of the top 5, and right now he's inside the door.
You'll recall that a couple of years ago, Jeff had a very, very good race here at Portland, and perhaps this is going to be another very fine race. We're inside the car again, the Valvoline race cam, headed for the chicane. Jeff negotiating it fine down the straightaway now, headed for turn number 1 with the Randy Lewis car right ahead of him, the 24 machine. Into turns 1 and 1A. Turn number 2, you're going to hear how the car accelerates and brakes and downshifts throughout the course.
It's not an easy course to pass on. It's not impossible, but it's challenged. There are no gimmies here at Portland. You have to hit that final turn coming out of the series of S's onto the backstretch just right. So if you're trying to pass somebody like Jeff is right now, maybe you can outbrake Randy Lewis going into turn number 9, but no soap this time. Now he'll try to hit turn number 9 just right so he gets a good run off of him. Coming on to the longest straightaway on this course, front stretch, he drops to the inside. Randy gives him lots of room. There goes Jeff running in the top 5. Chicane is coming up. Remember, it's a quick flick to the right and then back to the left just before a hard right hand. Here it comes. There it is. Flick to the right, back to the left. Boom, boom. Touch the curb on both sides. That's the way it's supposed to be done.
And that's a lap around Portland International Raceway with Jeff Brabham. Now out on the racetrack, we still have these 4 cars running right together. That's Ludwig Heimrath Jr., Jose Legarza, Rick Mears, and Fabrizio Barbosa. 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. They continue to run in that order, but some really fine, close racing going on. Jose Legarza now right up on the back bumper of that Ludwig Heimrath car. But the Canadian holding off the challenge, at least for the time being. Canadian driver followed by a Mexican driver, followed by an American, and then an Italian, Fabrizio Barbosa.
The reputation here at Portland is really coming along quite nicely. We've had some interesting races here. We had that tremendous finish, the closest one in the contemporary history of racing. The record books will tell us on the boards back in 1929 there were actually 2 races on the same day that had closer finishes, if you can believe that, inside of 7/100ths of a second. That must be just a few inches. But as far as the contemporary history goes, this track has produced the closest winner in the history of big-time IndyCar racing. Gary Lee is down in the pit area now with Dick Simon.
Dick, we talk about pre-race strategy. It's really no secret that we're here standing talking right now and you're not out there racing, is it?
No, it's not, Gary. Actually, my heart's out there and I'd love to be racing, but we came here without a sponsor. So, you know, Ludwig Heimrath is our major driver this year, and our sponsor, McKinsey Corporation, Tim Horton Donuts, expect a backup car. So I prepared the car as a backup. We weren't really going to run it because my sponsors weren't sponsoring here. After we got it prepared as a backup, I just couldn't stay out of it. It was helpful to the race, too, because we were short of cars for this race. So it helped me get a little time for Meadowlands. It helped the crew to make sure the car's right, and we'll be strong in Meadowlands.
Yeah, but I know there was a struggle going on right up here when you were out there. One voice is saying, let's pull it off, and another voice saying, this is too much fun.
Well, you see, I was going to come in about 5 laps. You notice I stayed out quite a bit longer. Actually, I stayed out till it ran out of fuel.
All right, so the boss is back in. He'll watch his protege.
Well, if he's out of fuel with 23 laps completed here.
No, he didn't fill it up. I'm sure that was the story. With 104 laps in this race, everybody, 33 laps is what a lot of people are shooting for, particularly on this first stop, because we had 2 laps of warm-up. If somebody can go 35 laps, that means they will be assured of getting it done in 2 pit stops. So the first stop becomes important, because if somebody can stretch it past 33, it's probably in pretty good shape to go the distance on just 2 halts.
All right, it remains the same up front. Emerson Fittipaldi, followed by Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, and Jeff Brabham here at Portland. Doing a little grass cutting in turns 1A and 2 is Jeff McPherson in car number 11. The car slid off track, went quite a ways off track, but didn't hit anything. And Jeff now has gotten that car back under power and trying to build up some speed. Jeff McPherson goes off course on lap number 25.
The rookie who has finished all 4 of the 4 scheduled races. You can see there's a flat rear tire, or at least it's deflating. It's certain. No, it's perhaps even loose from the axle, and half shaft. And Jeff is trying to limp around. He's got his hands full there, I'll tell you.
Well, this broadcast is being produced under authority granted by Championship Auto Racing Teams for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction of this broadcast in any form without the express written permission of Championship Auto Racing Teams and ESPN is expressly prohibited. We watch Jeff McPherson now limp back to the pit area, and let's go to Gary Lee, who is with a driver who's obviously also disappointed again this season. Here's Roberto Guerrero and Gary Lee.
I have to tell you, it's difficult to talk with you under these circumstances, but it's happening all too often. What happened?
Well, I'm afraid we just lost the engine. There's no notice, just lost it again. So I guess we have a little bit of work to do on that side and see if we can solve it.
Be honest with us now. Do you ever go back to the trailer, the hauler, and start talking to yourself after a race with all this bad luck?
Well, I don't believe it's bad luck. I mean, those things, you know, there's a problem there we have to solve. So I don't believe it's bad luck. It's just one of those things.
So you can still smile and you're not that frustrated?
Well, I mean, we had a good weekend. It is frustrating to go out of the race. You know, the True Value STP March was just working beautifully. We were taking it very easy with the engine because we were going to be marginal on the fuel, which I think is going to be a factor on the race later. So, I mean, you know, everything was according to plan till then.
More action on the racetrack. Let's go back to Bob and Larry.
All right, thank you, Gary. Jeff McPherson has come in for a pit stop. And Arie Luyendyk is also in for a pit stop. And the word is that McPherson and Arie Luyendyk may have had a meeting out there on the racetrack that led to Jeff's going off course.
Well, it didn't look like the McPherson's problem was a minor one, but he's back underway, and maybe Jeff McPherson is back after finish number 5, consecutive finish number 5. They're working very hard, Larry Curry and crew, on the front suspension of at least the left-hand side of the front end on Arie Luyendyk's car. Arie Luyendyk, who's had his strongest IndyCar season without question to date in 1987. He has been one of the people who had a shot at winning every time out. But his day has got this little detour here at Portland, and I don't think it's going to work out.
Well, the only real hot battle out on the racetrack is still involving Ludwig Heimrath Jr., 7th, and Jose Legarza in 8th position. And there right behind, not too far, is Rick Mears and Fabrizio Barbosa. These 4 cars have been running together on the racetrack for quite a few laps now. They remain in the same order, but nevertheless, it's a pretty good contest as they file through. There's Rick Mears passing a slower car there, and Fabrizio Fabrizio Barbaza will be doing so also.
Bob, as we watch Rick Mears here, Rick running in 9th position, just a comment about the interview with Roberto Guerrero and Gary Lee. I buy that. Roberto is a very even-tempered gentleman. He's very calm, collected, and cool. And he doesn't strike me at all as the kind of guy, even behind the closed door of your private den, would be pounding on the desk and walking around like a caged animal. Derek Daly slowing down. Derek, who had that strong race at Milwaukee, the last IndyCar race, had an off-course excursion here this weekend at Portland. Crashed, but they put the car back together. This does not appear to have been an off-course excursion. He too appears to be having an engine problem. Bob, I'm a little surprised. This track this early in the race should not have been, under normal conditions, a problem for lots of engines.
Well, it certainly has been to this point as Derek Daly rolls in now. Derek crashed during a practice session earlier in the weekend and did quite a bit of damage to that race car, but the crew has worked very hard to repair it and did not take part in any qualifying session on Saturday or in the final practice. They were still putting the car together, but they did have it ready for today's race. But Derek Daly is being helped out of that race car, and it appears to be all over for Derek. Let's go to Gary Lee in the pit area once again.
Well, it's not all that unusual in a Winston Cup race to see this type of activity going on in the pit area, but all this repair is unusual for a car championship race. Lee Koonsman, who is the team manager for the Ari Luyendyk Living Well Fitness Pravimi Veal team, is standing by. Obviously, there was some contact on the racetrack. Lee, what are you guys changing now?
Well, we've been a left front steering link in the contact with McPherson, so it'll be a little longer pit stop than we anticipated, but we still should be able to get by with one more and make it to the end. We'd just like to finish in the top 12 at this point and get credited with some points.
With the attrition rate, if you just finish the race, you may be in the top 12.
It appears that way at this point. I think we shall be.
So the work continues down here on car 71. We should see Ari a bit later in the competition.
All right, the lead continues to be held by Emerson Fittipaldi. There he is with about a 4.1 second lead now on Bobby Rahal. So that lead has shrunk somewhat as Rahal begins to close in just a little bit, but still a rather comfortable advantage for Emerson Fittipaldi.
Luyendyk, Koonsman, Larry Curry, and crew, they have been pretty successful in finishing races this year. They are 6th on the most laps completed list. They have completed had completed 600 laps out of the potentially 695, which would be their maximum coming into the race here in Portland. And 3 times they've been on the track at the finish, and he was ranked 6th in points.
Bobby Rahal to the inside of Jeff McPherson and lapping him. We expect Emerson Fittipaldi to make a pit stop next time around. We'll keep our eye on that situation, but it appears as if Emerson is slowing down. Well, there is Ari Luyendyk, who apparently tried to get out of the pit area, and it didn't last very long. That car is stalled.
Okay, if Fittipaldi comes in next, lap 32, boy, that puts them right on the margin. It's not possible to tell at this point as we approach pit stop number 1 whether or not that will be stout enough mileage to go the distance. It probably will, because remember, completing 32 laps at speed plus 2 at a casual miles per hour of the parade lap. So it should be enough. Here comes Bobby Rahal. It's lap 32, remember. It should be just enough.
We'll watch Rahal's pit stop as the crew goes to work now, refueling the car and changing the rubber on the right side. Let's go to Gary for a closer observation.
Well, right now it will be a 3-tire change. No, they're opting to go with 4 tires, topping off the 40 gallons of methanol. The drink tank is tossed from the cockpit, and Rahal with a spray of water on the refueling rig is underway.
It was an 18.5 second pit stop for Bobby Rahal, and back out onto the racetrack he goes in a hurry.
Pretty smooth, pretty routine pit stop. They accomplished everything that they wanted to do. It wasn't lightning fast, but it certainly wasn't a slow one either. Routine, solid pit stop for Bobby Rahal.
Now we expect Emerson Fittipaldi to be making his stop very, very shortly, if not this time around. Meanwhile, Johnny Rutherford has come in for his pit stop.
Heimrath is in, saw him go by. There goes Garza. Rick Mears has stopped. Emerson Fittipaldi is in, and Gary Leary is right down in the midst of everything. Gary.
And I am standing here waiting for Mo, the 2-time world driving champion, stopped right on the money. It will be a 4-tire change. So we've got the clocks now on Emerson Fittipaldi as they approach 10 seconds. Emerson Fittipaldi was delighted by the chance to start inside the front row. He has made the most of it. They have finished the refueling at 17, 18, 19 seconds, having some trouble with the right foot. He pulls away in just about 21.2 seconds.
That should make things very close because Rahal had a much better pit stop than Emerson Fittipaldi. But Emo is back out onto the course, and now the first series of pit stops have been completed. Danny Sullivan is moving very slowly along pit road as we watch Guerrero, the leader of the race, the former leader, work up to speed. And here is Danny Sullivan now apparently out of fuel. Wouldn't you say, Larry?
Well, I don't know if we picked him up here after or before his stop. Certainly if it's before the stop, that'd be my best guess. But it looks like from this camera angle, it is after the pit stop.
No, their pits are way down at the end of the road, so they're pushing him to the pit area.
I'll be darned.
Now look at this as Fittipaldi and Rahal have come out onto the track almost side by side. Emo with the advantage, but Rahal is within 3 or 4 car lengths.
Now how can that happen? You say Fittipaldi went in with a 5-second lead. His pit stop was only 2 seconds slower than Rahal. It's not just the amount of time that the car is actually at a halt. There is Michael Andretti. He's been running third. That counts to a pit stop. It's how quickly does the driver get into the pits and how much time does it take him to get back up to speed. So it's not just the time that you are at a complete stop. It's how long it takes you to get in and get out. And there are a lot of factors that play into that. When Fittipaldi and Rahal come out right together, you can tell Michael Andretti is right now just exiting the pit. So they've got a healthy margin over Michael. And Mario at this moment is also just now exiting. So both Michael and Mario are about 20 seconds back.
We'll see who has a stronger car here, Emerson Fittipaldi or Bobby Rahal. Rahal right up on the rear wing of that car now as they negotiate the west end of the racetrack once again. 34 laps have been completed, by the way, and everybody has come in for his first pit stop. So for the next few laps, we'll be seeing some great racing, possibly for the lead. And we'll be back in just a moment to Portland, Oregon. Marlboro-sponsored car of Emerson Fittipaldi leads, but the Budweiser-sponsored car of Bobby Rahal is in second position. And you can see how close they are as the pit stops have really made this a good race.
They have, but it's also kind of shaken out some of the pretenders to the throne and the guys who are sitting on the throne. That is, 4 cars right now are only on the lead lap, and one of them is not that yellow number 8 of Rick Mears. Bobby Rahal is certainly on the lead lap, as is Emerson Fittipaldi. And in 3rd and 4th place, there's just one name, Andretti. Michael's in 3rd, Mario is 4th. Brabham is the leader of the pack. Now Jeff is being shown on the lead lap. There are 5 cars in the lead lap, and Rick Mears is 6th. The head car that is 1 lap down. Remember, Sullivan was up there into the top 5, but he had that disastrous pit stop, and perhaps Gary Lee can fill us in a little bit on what happened. Gary?
Well, I think perhaps we can. It's very uncharacteristic for the communications to lapse in the Penske organization. The problem was a faulty radio hookup. There apparently was some interference from another race team. They could not convey to Danny that it was time to stop. He stayed out 1 extra lap, and it was just too long. So that lengthy pit stop, a lack of communication because of interference on the radio hookup, may cost Danny the race.
Well, that's an interesting situation. The old pit boards might have helped Sullivan communicate with the pit crew, or the crew communicate with him a little bit better than the sophisticated radios that are now being used.
Yeah, everybody has the pit boards. When you're out there racing and you think that the radio is the dependable line of communication, you perhaps would have a tendency to ignore the pit board, at least on 1 lap. But when you get close to the pitting area, the time of the race, lap 31, 32, 33, obviously becomes pretty critical.
We're watching 10th and 11th here as Ludwig Heimrath Jr. is in 10th, and Danny Sullivan in the number 3 Miller American car is in 11th position, and they're both being shown as 2 laps off of the pace. Danny Sullivan chasing Ludwig Heimrath Jr. through turn number 9 here at Portland. Onto the main straightaway once again as 39 laps have been completed out of 104. Being shown as 1 lap down in 9th position is Jose Legarza. So the field beginning to get spread out here just a little bit. And in case you're just joining us, we can tell you that Little Al was one of the early outs as he had engine problems early in the going, and Roberto Guerrero also has dropped out of the race with an engine problem. And no yellow flags to speak of. There was contact between Jeff McPherson and Ari Lyondike on the racetrack, but both cars were able to make it back to the pit area, and Jeff McPherson is still running. Well, Derek Daly is another one of those who has dropped by the wayside, and here's Gary Lee.
Derek, our friendly commentator at times in the ESPN broadcast booth. It was a short race for you today. It's been a trying weekend.
A difficult weekend for the team, but the car was good in the race. I was making up positions almost as we had planned, but the engine blew in a pretty big way coming down the back straight.
The problem over the weekend, you said, actually was driver error. We hate to talk about it like that, but you've been so honest. But the damage was not that severe. You had a chance to bolt the parts back on in practice yesterday.
It wasn't severe, but it put us out of the final qualifying session. On the first session on Friday, I had the brake seize, so I effectively got no qualifying at all, hence our back of the grid position. But as it happened, whether we were on the front or the back, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Obviously, you're still happier in a race car than the broadcast booth.
Yes, and if anybody's watching in Ireland, because I know they may be, hello, and I am fine. Look forward to seeing you soon.
And if anybody is watching in Holland, you'll probably enjoy this. And by the way, if you are picking us up in Holland, let us know how you're doing it, because you're very much a magician. Joining us in the booth is one of the rare privileges that we have as we go back up front and look at Emerson Fittipaldi there on the right, Bobby Rahal on the bright red #1 on the left. On a road course, you have this long walk back to the pit area, and we have lassoed Ari Leyendijk. Ari, tough incident up there. What happened between you and Jeffrey?
Well, Jeff and I was following Jeff for a while, and it was really closing up in the corners, and he just pulled me on the straights, and we were really lacking horsepower on the straights today. And I just got stuck behind him, and there was a gap, and I went for it, but he just closed the gap on me. We touched wheels, and it bent the car enough so that I couldn't continue.
Today must have been a frustrating day, because 1987 up till today has been really kind to you guys. You guys really have been in it for every one of the wins.
Yeah, I guess Jeff McPherson and I had a tangle in Long Beach. He ran to the back of me, and now we tangled again, so I don't want to see him around me too much. That's been our biggest problem this year on the Elvis. We've been having a good season. Phoenix was third and Milwaukee fourth. I'm really happy with the Hamilcar team. Looking well. The field car has been running pretty good, except this weekend we just had a lot of problems.
Ari, you mentioned the fact that you touched wheels with Jeff while racing with him. Is there a particular point on this racetrack that is good for passing? It's a very narrow racetrack, but where is the opportunity to do the most of the passing here?
Basically at the end of both straightaways going into both chicanes, and so it was real tough for me without really having the horsepower to get next to these guys. So there was a gap, and I went for it. You know, it's one of those rare opportunities. You want to take the opportunity to use it, and it just didn't work out.
Well, there is the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, going around Jeff McPherson. He got around successfully. He picked one of those places you were talking about, the midpoint of one of the straightaways. The back straight isn't really a straightaway, but it's about as close you can get on this place.
Yeah, the front straightaway, and the back is really a straightaway, but you don't really brake hard for that chicane, so you can't really outbrake someone that you don't do a heavy braking.
Ari, thank you very much. I know it's a very long and tedious walk in this heat back to the pit area. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. We'll see you the next road course for sure.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Best of luck, Ari. All right, now with about a 2.1 second lead on Bobby Rahal is Emerson Fittipaldi. So the question that we asked earlier, just after the pit stops, when these two cars came out on the racetrack virtually together, has been answered. Emerson Fittipaldi, it appears at this point at least, does have the stronger cars. He's been able to open up more than 2 seconds worth of advantage over Bobby Rahal. So Emerson Fittipaldi is certainly looking good here today. As we indicated earlier, his teammate Kevin Kogan is sitting out the race here today. We had a chance to talk to Mo about that.
It's tough to park teammate, but it makes a difference having a one-car team.
I think on the situation that like we went through Indianapolis and Milwaukee, that we lost a lot of performance, I think was a very good idea to get things together, to do a very good testing like we done in Riverside, and have my Marlboro car running fast here today.
Well, it is indeed running fast here today. He started from outside of row #1. Qualifying about a half second slower than, at least a half a mile an hour slower than Roberto Guerrero, our fastest qualifier. But Guerrero is already out of the race, and Emerson Fittipaldi is doing a fine job staying in the lead and lengthening his advantage over the rest of the field. It's still Michael Andretti running third. Mario Andretti is fourth, and Jeff Brabham fifth, and those cars are on the lead lap. We'll be back in a moment.
It's routine to drop out of a race, Gordy, but under these circumstances, with all the effort they have put into this weekend, this has got to be terribly deflating, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it is, because they were running so well. You know, they've been having problems all year long, but they kind of went back to basics. I think the way the car came, and they done so well here at qualifying. They were second, and then Emerson took the lead and went out to lead it all the way and was really running away from them. Just looked like he was running with ease, like Mario was at the Speedway. And it's a shame like this, something has to happen, because it really got the crew's hopes up, I know.
And there you can see the conversation going on between crew members and Emerson Fittipaldi, and he is being assisted as far as the belts are concerned, and he's going to be climbing out of that car, and Emerson Fittipaldi's day is over. Ray Hall now has a lead, though, with Michael Andretti running second and Mario Andretti is third.
Emerson Fittipaldi, I bet they just hardly cannot believe it. They sit down there. Now we go back up front and we find Bobby Rahal. Remember, we commented earlier that the habit of this team has been in the last 3 or 4 seasons to come on strong at the end. And they come into Portland in the best position that they have been in the last 3 years. And last year, they won the points championship.
And it's not been a particularly good season for Bobby Rahal to this point, as he has finished 2 of the races, 2 of the 4 races so far. He was 24th at Long Beach and 26th at Indianapolis. Did have a couple of runner-up positions at Phoenix and Milwaukee. And now back inside the Jeff Brabham car, as he is following the number 55 car of Jose Garza, and also ahead of him,
I think Heimrath is in that group also.
Right.
Yes. And Sullivan, I believe, probably would be ranked with those guys. Remember, he lost a lot of ground at the pit stop, and let's see, that red car with the white trim. Let's take a guess at Sullivan right now. We can't tell from this angle, but there's Heimrath. You can see the rookie stripes on the car. He certainly has not driven like a rookie, though. He's had a solid year. Dick Simon says this is maybe the strongest rookie that I've ever been associated with, and maybe one of the strongest ones I've ever seen in IndyCar racing. Down the backstretch. Remember, it's kind of like a big pit. Yeah, that is Sullivan, and it is Heimrath.
Some excellent pictures coming from the Jeff Brabham car as he negotiates his 1.9-mile racetrack. By the way, Jeff is being shown a lap down. There are only 3 cars on the lead lap. We'll see how he handles Ludwig Heimrath Jr. now as he comes down the straightaway. Apparently will not make a move this time, as Heimrath and Danny Sullivan stay ahead of him. Let's go to the pit area once again.
Emmo, it looked like all the testing at Riverside was going to pay off. What put you out?
Yeah, no, very disappointed, Gary, because the car was really running beautiful. No, my Marlboro March was just beautiful this race, and I could drive very smooth. I could apply the power when I need. I was not driving too dramatic. I was just taking care of the car, and something went wrong on the west gate behind the engine, and we don't know what's happening.
Can you give us your opinion, your assessment of why the attrition rate is so high here today?
The what, sorry?
The attrition rate. We've had so many cars drop out, blowing engines and problems. Is the track rough? Is it the heat? Is it the sprint speed that we're running?
I think the heat pays a lot. The track is a quite difficult track. Here requires a lot of traction. You're using the transmission a lot. You're overdriving the engines. It's a tough track.
Oh, it could be a long day for a lot of drivers. We'll have to wait and see just how many cars actually finish.
Well, that was an interesting little gesture that Jeff Brabham made. Thank you, Gary, for that interview with Emerson Fittipaldi. As Jeff Brabham came down the straightaway that time, he signaled to the starter, indicating to him that he thinks perhaps that Ludwig Heimrath Jr. should be given the move over flag, because at least Jeff Brabham feels that Ludwig may be impeding his pace just a little bit here.
Gordy, you've been in this position before many, many times. Does it work? Can you communicate with Nick Quinoro on the flag stand? And on a road course, a long wait for the next time around.
Well, somewhat. I've done the same thing. I've seen times when they should have gotten the move over flag, but if you find most drivers don't pay any attention to it, really, so it doesn't do too much good to wave it a lot. Maybe Nick knows that.
Well, this is an unusual situation, Gordy. They're on the track racing for position, and Jeff is trying to get through. There goes John Cock, or make your John Cock, aren't you? Goes to the inside of Jose Garza. Let's see if Jeff makes a gesture again this time.
Well, if they're racing for position here, they definitely should not give him the move over flag. And I've also seen that happen when they didn't know where they were at.
And perhaps we did see a move over flag being displayed there to Ludwig Heimrath Jr. So perhaps Jeff's gesture from last lap paid off. Nevertheless, he's having difficulty getting around Ludwig. Just some excellent pictures, though, from the Valvoline race cam inside Jeff Brabham's car. Here in Portland, it's Bobby Rahal leading this 200-mile IndyCar race. The Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 IndyCar race well underway from Portland International Raceway. We are just a little more than halfway through this event. And at the lead, at the moment, it is Bobby Rahal on the lead, and there is Rick Mears passing Jeff McPherson. Rick is being shown in 5th position. There are only 3 cars on the lead lap, and Mario Andretti is ahead of Rick Mears, but Mario is on the lead lap, so this is not necessarily a battle for position. There is Mario Andretti being shown in 3rd, about 20 seconds behind Bobby Rahal, and Michael Andretti is about 14 seconds behind Bobby.
Some notes here as we approach the halfway point in this race. We'll go 104 laps. Remember that Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan are in Penske PC16s this week. And there you see the yellow number 8 Pennzoil car of Rick Mears. So they have made some progress. Danny has lost some ground because of apparently running out of fuel. Also recall that Rahal came in 1 lap earlier than everybody else did on lap 32. Now, by our best guess is that if he's only getting 32 laps plus the 2 on the warm-up before the start of the race, he is very close. And the pit board came out about 10 laps ago saying Bobby turned the boost down, and the reason for that is we may be burning up just a little bit too much methanol, and we've got to toe in our horns just a little bit. He has maintained the lead, though, despite turning the boost down, and we assume that Bobby has. The lead has remained a stable 14 seconds in front of Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti, Mario, Jeff Brabham, everybody else came in on lap 33. Now, that is not a big difference, so maybe everybody is in the same situation. They're all trying to turn down the boost so that they can finish this race on 1 more pit stop. And one final point, Emerson Fittipaldi says very, very hot out there. It will be a factor at the end of this race.
7th and 8th position here, Scott Brayton in the blue and pink car, and right behind him is Danny Sullivan. Our Napa mid-race recap shows that at the halfway point, the leader was Bobby Rahal with about a 14.1 second advantage over Michael Andretti. The average speed of the race at that point was 109.49 miles an hour. There had been 3 leaders and 3 lead changes, 4 cars on the lead lap, and 13 cars remaining in the race out of 22 that started. Out of the race, Rick Miskiewicz, Unser Jr. with a motor problem. So was Roberto Guerrero. Tom Sneva has dropped out of the race, as has Dick Simon. And Dale Coyne is also out, along with Derek Daly, Ari Lyondike, and the guy who led the first stages of this event, Emerson Fittipaldi. So back to this battle now, as Danny Sullivan has been able to pass Scott Brayton, and Danny Sullivan has put himself into 7th position. Here comes Scott Brayton, though, passing Randy Lewis on the racetrack. And right behind all this is Jeff Brabham.
Brabham is hanging right in there. Brabham is now showing in 4th. Again, recapping the top 5. It's Rahal, Michael Andretti, Mario Brabham, and Rick Mears is in 5th. Rick, remember, has lost a lap, but that's somewhat of an accomplishment for these guys. Rick, back in the early 1980s, 1981, 82, and there is Jeff Brabham. We're going back inside him. Now he's working on Randy Lewis there, the A.J. Watson machine. Mears was very strong on road courses, and this is one of his best showings of this year. There goes Brabham to the outside there, going along the slough. In the Midwest, perhaps you would recognize the word lagoon but that's water there on the right side of the cars as they go down the backstretch.
This report from the pit area, here's Gary Lee.
Well, I think maybe Steve Horn is working as hard here in the pit area as his driver Bobby Rahal is out there on the racetrack, because really you're trying to compute just how much fuel he has, and at this point there is no room for error.
Well, fuel consumption is okay, but there is no room for error. We're pretty tight on it. We have no leeway, but I think our biggest concern really is rear tires at the moment, because that's where we're seeing a lot of wear.
But is the boost up?
Oh yeah, we're running as hard as it'll go, yeah.
So right now the concern, not only fuel, but also that right rear, because they're burning them up out there.
All right, we'll keep an eye on Bobby Rahal, who has a 13 3/4 second lead over Michael Andretti, with Mario about 21 seconds behind. By the way, Bobby Rahal's last road course win was at Laguna Seca last year, and he is lapping that group of cars that we have been watching all day. Jose Legarza and Ludwig Heimrath Jr. and others.
I still stand by our call, Bob, that I think they're watching the boost knob real closely. And yeah, Bobby may be up all the way as he passes cars, and when he gets a free racetrack, maybe he comes back down again. But everybody's cutting it close. They really are, but they all should make it. but we might be setting ourselves up, as Bobby Rahal puts a lap on Randy Lewis, for a finish similar to a year ago. Remember that Michael Andretti, Barry Green and crew cut it razor thin. It was too thin. They nicked their chin coming down for the checkered flag.
And it set up what was undoubtedly one of the most exciting finishes in IndyCar history, as the race was just too close to call at the finish line. There is Jeff McPherson, who is still out there running, and should he be able to finish this race, he will continue his string of being the only driver to complete all races so far this year.
Our observers, and we've got a spin, and appears to be Ludwig Heimrath Jr. spinning, making no contact out on course. We're about to comment that our observers were saying they saw some debris perhaps coming from the Jeff McPherson car as Ludwig Heimrath comes to a stop, having hit nothing but having spun off, and can't tell exactly from that angle where it is. I think it may well be coming out of the S's, Bob, over in the turn 4-5 area.
Possibly, I can't tell either. And Jeff McPherson has also stopped on course, so a couple of cars that have stalled on the racetrack or just off of the racetrack. And of course, there are no overall yellow flag situations in road course racing unless the officials deem that it is the cars are in precarious spots and should be gotten off of the racetrack. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. Now, this does indeed stop the string, and Jeff McPherson will not finish here at Portland.
Well, apparently our observers also had pretty keen eyes. They saw what was going on, and this problem did appear to be mechanical, not just with the tire situation. There you can see a little more of a panorama of that situation, and it is coming out of the S's turn 4, turn 5, as we guessed. There's Heimrath in the blue and silver car. You can see the car just getting away, following. Is that Bobby Rahal?
Yes, it is.
Right in front of the leader, Bobby Rahal, and Ludwig standing on the brakes, which don't look nearly as good on grass as they do on pavement, but he got her hunkered down and stopped this time.
That's right there in turn 4 that the spin occurred in. They do have the car headed in the right direction now.
I think he's got some fire too. I saw a flame shooting out there.
Yeah, maybe, or it could be just the sun glistening on the back end of the racetrack. In any case, it looks like that Ludwig Heimrath Jr. would like very much to get back into competition. We're in Portland, Oregon for the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. The leader of event number 5 on the PPG IndyCar World Series for 1987, the G.I. Joe's Budweiser 200 here at Portland, is Bobby Rahal. About a 13-second lead over Michael Andretti, who has about a 5-second lead over Mario Andretti. Bobby, though, setting the pace here after Emerson Fittipaldi called it quits.
It's about a quarter of a lap on this less than 2-mile road course. And Gordon Johncock, we're curious. Your observation of what Rahal's doing right now. We've seen a lot of the top cars drop out with engine problems. Is he running seemingly the right pace, the right kind of race, but it's hot as it's getting here this afternoon?
Well, it looks like it. I think he's just trying to maintain the 13, 14-second lead that he has over Michael. His crew is definitely talking to him on the radio, telling him where he's at, and I think they're just trying to maintain that, trying to keep the car in good condition at least till the end of the race.
The best move for Michael and Mario to just hold back and wait?
Well, I think so. You know, they got a couple pit stops to go yet, and there's a long ways to go, and I think they'll just probably maintain it and try and hold their positions unless the car gets really working better. That means a lot on your tire changes. You might get a set of tires that works a little better, one does than the other, and I think they'll just kind of drive to the way the car is performing.
Well, we'll watch Danny Sullivan pit stop here. Thanks for joining us, Gordy. When are we going to see you in a race car again?
Well, hopefully, maybe at Michigan. We're trying to put some deals together where we can run the 2 500-mile races that are left.
Best of luck, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Danny Sullivan moving back out onto the pit area, back out from the pit area onto the racetrack. There sure is a story concerning that Michigan 500 that's coming up in a few weeks. The CART is studying the possibility of putting a chicane, or what they would rather call an elbow, as Mario Andretti is having problems and slowing down on the racetrack. Mario is slow. Could he be out of fuel? It's just about the time for another pit stop.
Mario Andretti coasting with some power as he goes back and forth. He does seem to slosh around, or at least it's a possibility that the fuel is sloshing around, giving the car power. We're at lap number 64. thought was that you needed to go to about 66 or 67 perhaps on this stop, and it could well be a fuel phenomenon for Mario Andretti. He is the 4th most prolific leader of laps here at Portland over the 3 years of this race. He's led about 10% of the laps. He's never seen first place today, and his chances for victory may be going down the drain right now with these precious drops of fuel, if indeed that's the situation.
Let's finish this Michigan story. CART would like to refer to it as an elbow, or better yet, a dog leg. They're thinking about doing this out of turn number 2, and there will be some testing that goes on this coming Thursday at Michigan International Speedway. But if CART decides that it is a good way to slow the cars down at Michigan, they will go with it for the 500-mile race. So we'll know more in probably about a week as to whether or not there will be a dog leg made at Michigan International Speedway to slow the cars down for the Michigan 500.
Rutherford, Brabham, Scott Brayton, and leader Bobby Rahal. Interesting situation now, as you see Rahal right behind Brabham.
Doing some motioning, didn't he?
Yeah, now Jeff is in the other side of this. We've got a car, looks like Sullivan.
Andy Sullivan slides off course, and looks like he's got a lot of smoke and perhaps a little bit of fire in the back end of that race car. The attrition rate today just unbelievable, as Mario has made it back to the pit area, but it's looks like it's going to be a very, very long pit stop. Gary?
Well, when he first coasted in, we asked the crew if in fact it was only fuel. They said we really don't know. He coasted in without power. They topped off the fuel, changed all 4 tires, started to take the cowling off to check the spark box, elected not to. They have now started the car, listening to that Chevy, and the Chevy dies. So Mario now sits not so patiently in the cockpit as they put the inertial starter back in. They have the car fired again, and he loses it again. Now they tap the side pod, indicating let's take the cowling off and check the ignition system. So obviously it was not just fuel. They had the fuel. The car still will not run.
A tough break for Mario Andretti, who was running in 3rd position, but silts helplessly along pit road now. This is the 2nd disappointing race in a row, actually the 3rd disappointing race in a row for Mario, as 2 weeks ago he crashed at Milwaukee and injured his back, but it didn't keep him from competing in an IROC race just the next Saturday. Now here he is at Portland this weekend and suffering some mechanical problems, probably ignition.
Changing the spark box.
They are changing the spark box. Thank you, Gary, for that report. But in the meantime, things continue to happen on the racetrack, and we anticipate a pit stop by our leader, Bobby Rahal, in just a few laps as Rick Mears comes in for his routine maintenance.
Not only in a few laps, but maybe in the next lap. We're watching for the Bud crew to bolt the wall. I see red uniforms out there in the vicinity of Rick Mears, so perhaps Bobby Rahal will be coming in this lap. He comes in on lap 68. He has stretched the distance that they were able to go this time from 32 to 35 laps, and that should well be enough.
And here he comes into the pit area. Stopping on the marks, and the crew going to work. The clock ticking off, 5, 6, 7 seconds completed now as the fuel goes in. The tires being changed on the car. Bobby himself getting a drink of refreshment, throwing the bottle on the other side of the pit wall, and preparing himself to get back out there on the racetrack. He is moving again in just a little over 20 seconds.
He's a little bit of Goodyear's finest there on pit road, but that's okay. Lots of people ask, well, does that punish the tires? No. As long as you do that just once, leaving the pit area, it's okay. And as long as you don't continue that burnout about a quarter of a mile down the racetrack, you're okay.
Michael Andretti now has inherited the lead here, but he has not made his 2nd and final pit stop of the afternoon. So he should be coming in within just a very few moments.
We understand that now the diagnosis for Mario Andretti's problems is a fuel pump. Anticipating Michael pitting pretty soon. Michael's getting tremendous mileage out of this load of 40 gallons of methanol. There's Michael right now following Rick Mears. Now remember, Rahal is the leader. He has made his stop. Boy, Michael's got to be pushing it. I would be very surprised if he goes another lap without stopping here. We're up to lap number 69. Remember that he pitted at lap 33, so he's got 36 laps out of this load. He should have no problems going the distance in this race, but I certainly would not recommend stretching it any further than this lap right here.
Well, this is going to be interesting to see if he can complete this lap on the amount of fuel that he has. If he does, he is, as you indicated, Larry, getting excellent fuel mileage. He comes off of turn number 5 and onto the backstretch once again. He's still at full throttle down the backstretch.
And now you might ask, well, so what if he's getting better mileage? Rahal right now is leading the race, but by getting better mileage, he can turn the boost control knob up if it is not already all the way up, and it's probably not, which will allow him to go faster and maybe move in on Bobby. And as we guessed, here comes Michael.
Well, he did make it, and here he comes for his stop as Michael Andretti, who was the leader, now comes in, giving their lead back to Bobby Rahal, at least for the moment. Here's Gary.
It will be a 4-tire change. As we heard earlier from Steve Horn with Bobby Rahal's team, they are really punishing the right rear, topping off what has been a very, very fuel economy-minded race car today. A drink of water, and the can goes back over the wall as they complete the pit stop. The tires are on except for the right rear, and they continue to work on it. The crew ready to push him away, and there goes Michael Andretti.
Well, it's about
45.1 seconds for the pit stop.
That's about 5 seconds longer than Bobby Rahal's stop, so it is no advantage gained in the pit area for Michael Andretti, but he does go back out on the racetrack.
And he almost stalled. What happens, by the way, in layman's terms, is that these cars have a tendency to stall regularly as we go back up front. Look at Bobby Rahal on a pit stop. It has to do with the heat, and there's an evaporation process that occurs, and the fuel actually dries up in some of the lines, and if you don't hit it just right, you can't have that problem of stalling.
Well, it is very warm here this afternoon. In all the years that we've been coming to Portland, I think that this is probably as warm as I have ever experienced it in Portland. Beautiful weather, though, all weekend, but the heat could be playing a factor in the attrition rate that we have seen here this afternoon. We'll be back with more right after this from Portland. Well, the Rose Festival is concluding here in Portland. They've had a variety of events here in the past couple of weeks. The Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 putting a cap on that festival. They're the top 5 after 73 laps. It's Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti, then Jeff Brabham, Rick Mears, and Scott Brayton. Those are the first 5 positions. And by the way, they were running 1 through 5 when they came in for a pit stop, and they've all come out running in the same order. Now we go back inside Jeff Brabham's car, and right ahead of him is Scott Brayton, who is being shown in 5th position, but Jeff is 3rd at the moment and has a lap on Jeff. But the indication we are getting is that Jeff is continuing to be frustrated with cars that he thinks should be shown the move over flag so that he can get by.
Scott Brayton, stout performance for him, running in 5th position, just 1 lap back from the leaders. And as we told you, Scott's had a pretty solid weekend, so this is not a phenomenon that is completely unexpected based on the performance so far here in Portland in the last 3 days. Jeff Brabham told you that Tony Cicale has picked up on this team. It's not that Tony has brought any new magic or any big changes, just that he seems to be welding everybody together, and they've been very optimistic all weekend long, and you could see visible improvement from Friday to Saturday up to this morning. So Jeff Brabham, he may well have his best finish of 1987. There goes Jeff to the inside of Scott Brayton. Scott moving over as they move into the first hard right-hander.
Just a real fine performance by Jeff Brabham here, and of course that car is powered by a Honda engine. Well, the heat playing a part with attrition and possibly the driver's comfort also.
ESPN coverage of NASCAR and IMSA car racing, we've talked about the use of cool suits, the ones that utilize the large ice chest and the pump that will pump the cold water through the capillaries in the vest and the skull cap. There's no room in an IndyCar for a large ice chest, but some of the drivers this weekend are utilizing a product from Thermcore that doesn't utilize water, it utilizes Freon, much the same as in the car air conditioning unit. This Freon is contained in this very lightweight canister, which is actually positioned behind the cockpit under this cowling. The helmet has a band right across the forehead here and across the bottom of the helmet, very much like a sweatband. And it's all activated by this battery pack, which is secured with Velcro on the left side of the cockpit. The driver can actually turn it up, turn it down, or turn it off. It's connected here with this unit to the helmet, and this what appears to be a phone jack to the battery pack. It lasts for about 3 hours, and the great advantage over water in the old units is it doesn't warm up. When the water turns cool and then begins to turn warm when the circulation ends, the body temperature will actually heat the water temperature, making it more uncomfortable for the driver. When the Freon has circulated all the way through after 3 hours, it cools off gradually, but then it never warms back up.
Trying to keep the driver cool under sunshiny, bright, warm skies here at Portland, Oregon. We'll be back with more of our live coverage of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. Stay with us. Back at Portland International Raceway for IndyCar racing, and the event being led by Bobby Rahal now with about a 20-second lead over Michael Andretti. Those are the only 2 cars on the lead lap. And Jeff Brabham running in 3rd position, 1 lap down. 2 laps down is Rick Mears. Scott Brayton is 5th. And Fabrizio Barbaza running in 6th position. Here comes Bobby Rahal down the straightaway, completing lap number 77 to make that 78.
We will go 104 laps here at the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 here in Portland. By the way, we want to thank the G.I. Joe's people. They've come through with a little bit of air conditioning for us here in the booth on a very hot day. Thanks a lot, guys.
And our field summary at this point in the race. Bobby Rahal leading, looking for his first victory of 1987. And in 2nd position, as we indicated, now showing about 21 seconds behind is Michael Andretti, but the car right behind the leader, Bobby Rahal, is Jeff Brabham, who is running in 3rd position, a lap down.
Interesting, notice the little orange X, that is the so-called backup car or the team car that they decided to haul out for Jeff Brabham. His teammate, of course, was Jeff McPherson. You see the in-car camera that is in Jeff Brabham's machine going down the back stretch. Let's call it the back stretch, just to the right or to the port side, if you will, of the sloop.
He finished 2nd here at Portland a couple of years ago, and looking for a 3rd place finish here today. There is Scott Brayton, who is running in 5th position at this point, shown as 3 laps to the rears.
Scott Brayton, who once had the 1-lap record in Indianapolis, that's on an oval. That was somewhat of a surprise, really, to those inside because he came up with a road racing background.
And there is 2nd place, Michael Andretti, fresh off of his victory at Milwaukee 2 weekends ago. At the moment, about 21 seconds behind Rahal. He is, however, the leader of Kart PPG IndyCar World Series points going into this race.
And remember who was 1st and 2nd in points a year ago? Mr. Rahal, Mr. Michael Andretti, and they are 1st and 2nd in this race. And look at the lead that Michael has over the rest of the field, as everybody is at least 1 lap back. Jeff Brabham is 1 lap back. And there is the most outstanding rookie from this year's Indianapolis 500.
And that is Fabrizio Barbaza, who is in 6th place. There are only 9 cars running in this event at the moment, and Fabrizio is in 6th.
Bob, I'll tell you one of the reasons why I'm impressed with Barbaza this year. He's still working on the English language, and communication is at best very difficult for him. He's working very hard, and he's made tremendous strides in the last year, but my hat really goes off for him. It's so difficult to try and communicate in another language, and he's doing an admirable job in a very tough assignment.
Well, we're looking for the next car, and there he is, Randy Lewis in car number 24. He is in 9th position, the final car in the standings and still out on the racetrack. Randy, of course, is a veteran road course competitor, and right behind him is the number 55 Machinist Union car driven by Jose Lee Garza, who is in 7th position and 3 laps back.
There's Jose Lee going to the inside of Mr. Lewis. Jose Lee putting a lap in. He's had a couple of top 5, couple of top 10s this year. He was 5th at the Long Beach Road Course and 6th at Phoenix. So it's not uncommon for Jose Lee to be running in the top 10. And as we mentioned earlier, they've had one of their more higher marked years or weekends.
And there is the next car out on the racetrack, and that is Rick Mears. You can see road course record, 6 wins, and Rick right now is 4th position here in the race.
Rick Mears driving a Penske PC16, and right behind him is another one of the veterans of the ovals, and the man who has won the Indianapolis 500 3 times. Count them, 1, 2, 3. Johnny Rutherford, and right behind Johnny, as we have completed our rundown of everybody left on the track. We've gone all the way around this modified oval road course. Rutherford, the last car, is Bobby Rahal, puts a lap on him.
And let's go to Gary Lee, who is with Mario Andretti.
One of the most unpleasant duties of any pit reporter is talking to a guy like Mario after all the hard luck he's had. What put you out this time?
Looks like a fuel pump cable sheared. Fuel pump drive sheared.
Obviously, we talk about that new Chevrolet Ilmore power plant. The power plant is working. It's all the accessories that don't seem to be working.
Yeah, that's it. That's what let us down this time again. And just one of those things, the engine just stopped, and I came in on the electric pump.
We saw your grinding crash 2 weeks ago at Milwaukee. Physically, how is Mario Andretti?
Well, I was good enough today to get by. I was just, that was not a factor.
So Mario physically was good enough. The car was not good enough today.
And there will be another race for Mario Andretti as we are now 82 laps into this 104-lap race at Portland, Oregon, with Bobby Rahal leading Michael Andretti. Bobby Rahal continues to lead here at Portland in this 200-mile IndyCar race. The advantage over Michael Andretti is just a little over 20 and 21.5 seconds. 9 cars still out there on the racetrack. Attrition has been the story in this race, as Roberto Guerrero was one of the early competitors to drop out. Unser Jr. went by the waysides early. Since then, Emerson Fittipaldi has dropped out, and so has Mario Andretti. Well, coming up next here on ESPN, right after our coverage of this IndyCar race from Atlanta, Georgia, the NHRA Drag Racing Southern Nationals. Please stay with us right after this for the drag racing, NHRA style.
Bob, during the last break, this is a good word coming up. You might want to listen to this. I've been doing a little bit of interpolating, okay, and trying to figure out who looks good, who perhaps is a little dicey in regards to pit stops. What I did, I took the lap that all the leaders came in and found out how many laps they made on their last stop and added it on to see who should be able to go the distance. I come up with Michael Andretti and Rahal being able to make it. Rahal right at 104. Does that mean he'll run out of fuel coming down for the final lap? But by calculations, both of them should be able to go the distance. I see Michael with a 1 lap or maybe a 2-lap pad. Now, these people can't go the distance. Jeff Brabham, Rick Mears, Scott Brayton, Fabrizio Barbaza, no problem. The man got 37 laps out of the last load of fuel, far more than anyone else. So those are the people among those running up the front right now who seem to be in a good situation, that being Rahal and Michael Andretti, and the ones who don't look like they can make it, Brabham, Mears, and Scott Brayton.
So we could have a finish similar to the one that we had last year here at Portland, during which Michael Andretti ran out of fuel and Mario Andretti beat him right at the line by 0.07 of a second. We say could because we're not down to the point of the race where we can actually make a determination, but calculations, Bobby Rahal may just have enough, or he may be just a little short as far as fuel is concerned to finish this race.
And necessarily, it is not the case that if you lead a lot of laps in this race, you become the winner. Al Jr., when he won back in '84, led 68 of the 104 laps, including leading at the halfway point. But in 1985, Mario led only 29 of 104, including just the last 19. At the halfway point, Al Jr. was leading. And last year, of course, Michael was leading halfway. We commented many times that Mario just took the lead, coming down off of turn number 9, the final turn, and picked up the win. So don't sit back in your easy chair and say, Rahal's got this one. Not, because not necessarily here at Portland. On this racetrack, 200 miles is just about 3 full loads.
Well, we've talked about cars needing fuel and how the cars are fueled along with that. Here is an ESPN and a Championship Auto Racing Team's track fact.
There are obvious chassis changes when going from a large oval like Indianapolis to a small oval like Milwaukee, or from a small oval to a road course like Portland. But one that we tend to overlook is the location of the refueling port. Now at Milwaukee and Indianapolis, the cars were going in a counterclockwise direction, so all refueling was done from the left side. But here at Portland, they're going in a clockwise direction, so refueling is done from the right side. Now each car has 2 refueling ports, right and left. In the case of running here at Portland, we simply bolt a cover on the left side, couple up, and refuel from the right.
At Portland International Raceway, it is Bobby Rahal leading Michael Andretti, Jeff Brabham, Rick Mears, and Scott Brayton. Will be back after these messages. There's the leader, Bobby Rahal, as he continues to set the pace with 88 laps completed. We're nearing the end of this 104-lap contest. Running right ahead of Bobby Rahal on the racetrack is Rick Mears, who at the moment is shown in 4th position, 2 laps down.
Gary brought up the subject of clockwise and counterclockwise. We do have 2 counterclockwise road courses at the Meadowlands Laguna, and that includes the next race. As Jeff Brabham seems to be coming in, and it's much too early. Well, yeah, much too early, because the next time he'd hoped to come in was the end of the race. Our 3rd place car.
Carrying some the in-car camera and giving us some excellent pictures throughout the afternoon, but this car is definitely having some problems, and he is steering into his pit area right now. It could be a terminal situation for Jeff Brabham, and an unfortunate situation because he was running 3rd, but as you can see, he is taking off the gloves, and he apparently knows that it's all over for the day.
I tell you, I really was convinced that they had all the gremlins cleared out, Bob. You know, I'm quite surprised to see Jeff Brabham coming in quietly before the end of this race. I thought they had a knock this weekend.
Well, let's go to Gary for an observation, Gary.
Well, really 2 observations. First, behind me is the crew members for Michael Andretti. Everything apparently is copacetic there. They have about 1 gallon of fuel left in the tank, but they're optimistic from their compulations that they can go the distance without another stop. If they had to stop, there wouldn't be enough fuel to make the rest of the race anyway. Also, as we watch these pit stops occur, so do kart officials. In fact, every crew has a kart official assigned, and every official has one of these pit observer report books. Now, every pit stop is logged. Here's the first one for Mario Andretti. His first stop was on lap 34. The check marks on the tires indicate they changed all 4 tires, added fuel. Up here, remarks, no problems. However, on the second stop, which occurred on lap 65, we have a number of problems. The check marks once again indicate 4 tires were changed, fuel was added, a checkpoint here indicating we had mechanical problems. Up here it reads, spark box changed, mechanical problem, a broken line to the fuel pump. So Andretti is out of the race. This becomes the official record of both the first and the second pit stop and why he was out. In fact, the final report indicates he was running in position number 3 right here when he stopped. However, there was 6 gallons of fuel remaining. He was not running at the end because a fuel pump cable broke. This is the official report on everything that happened here in the pit area on Mario Andretti's car number 5 and why Mario is not running now.
A lot of paperwork for each individual car during an IndyCar race. Mario, however, will finish 10th in this race because there are only 9 cars still in the event, and they're being led by Bobby Rahal over Andretti and Mears. Back at Portland, should Bobby Rahal win today's race here at this track, it'll be the first time that he has ever finished an event here. He was 14th in 1984, dropping out with gearbox problems. He was 20th in 1985 and in last year with an oil leak. So this will be his first finish ever here in Portland, and it could be a win, but the question is, does he have enough fuel to go the distance?
Well, again, the calculations say, yep, right on the money. Only time will certainly tell. Only time in the right foot of Bobby Rahal and how hard it's standing on the gas and how much gas is being pumped into the engine by their fuel pump through the means of the turbo boost. We'll see. You can't talk about Rahal without talking about the subject of points. Rahal will certainly jump up significantly. He came in 5th position in points at 32. Michael Andretti came in as the leader, 12 points ahead, so he would retain his points lead. A man who looked like he was having a great day until just a few minutes ago, and you were riding with him. Jeff Brabham was with our Gary Lee.
Yeah, here's the guy that gave us all those great shots from in the car, and we thought for sure, Jeff Brabham, you'd be on that victory podium. What put you out?
Well, unfortunately, the engine let go, really, for no reason. You know, it was just running along, and I really wasn't racing anybody, and we're just trying to continue in 3rd place there, and it would have been a good finish for us, but unfortunately, it didn't happen.
And I know we've said it before, we'll say it again because it's timely. You are overdue.
Well, I'd like to think so, but you know, you just got to go out and do it. And you know, so far we haven't been able to. But I think this weekend was a big turnaround weekend for us, and you know, we're a lot more competitive here than we've been. And you know, I think I can really see us being more competitive as the races go on.
A little more optimistic then, despite not finishing. He was running 3rd.
Yeah, I would also agree that this has been a turnaround weekend for this team because Jeff qualified 7th fastest and Jeff McPherson qualified 13th fastest, and Jeff was doing a great job running in 3rd. when the engine problem occurred.
I also want to thank his car owner, Rick Gallis, because he hosted a reception on his private yacht one night this weekend here at Portland, Christina. And it was very pleasant to be on the waterfront here in Portland in the great Pacific Northwest. And thank you very much, Rick. We really appreciate it. And yeah, it looks like you guys are on your way upward.
Bobby Rahal is about to complete lap number 96. So we are less than 10 laps away from the finish of this race. Looked like that car might have sputtered coming off of turn number 9. I guess not. Maybe a little bit of an illusion there as he continues to stay ahead of Jose Garza. But Rahal is staying in the lead with now about an 18-second advantage over Michael Andretti with, as you can see, 8 laps to go.
What happens really quickly here at Portland. Remember, we told you at the very beginning of this race, it's not an endurance contest. It certainly wasn't a short sprint. It happens quickly at the end. And Gary right now perhaps give us some insight into the future of Rahal's next 8 laps, because he's with the man who ought to know.
Well, I would not be so presumptuous to give you the insight, but here's a guy that can. Steve Horn will ask you again, how close are you going to be?
We're okay. We're okay on fuel. Again, I say our concern a little bit is tires, so he's been a little bit conservative with those. Rear tires they're okay, but they're really right down at the end of the stop. So that's what we're looking at now, just saving the tires a little bit.
Save the tires and letting Michael stay behind you.
I hope so.
With a big grin. We'll get on top with Barry Green.
All right, 18.5 seconds now, the interval between first and second position, as Rahal continues to stay in the lead here at Portland. It's been an exciting race, a lot of attrition in this event. Only 8 cars are still out there on the racetrack. An indication that Bobby Rahal may be slowing down because Jose Garza has passed him. The pass occurred going into the chicane. So he is perhaps, as Steve Horn told us, just conserving the tires and making sure they can go the full distance. As we have completed 98 laps now, there are less than 6 laps to go. And the top 5, Rahal, followed by Michael Andretti, Rick Mears, then Scott Brayton and Fabrizio Barbaza. And 6th is Jose Garza, 7th Johnny Rutherford, and 8th Randy Lewis. Those are the only cars that are still running in this race.
Remember back in the early stages when Emerson Fittipaldi was leading the race, he was clocking this road course at about 61.7 seconds. Rahal has been running 63 seconds. Does that perhaps tell us something? Maybe that was the more correct pace. Or no, we'll find out at the finish. Right now, the man who's chasing Bobby Rahal, Barry Green, is with Gary Lee.
Well, Barry Green is charting everything that's going on the racetrack. We talked earlier about fuel. Apparently that is okay, but how about your tire wear?
The tires are okay, Gary. The tires are working well. I don't think the chassis is working quite as well as Bobby's. We have a little bit of a gear selection problem in the pits here. But Bobby must be really marginal on fuel, so we're just hoping that maybe he's hurting a little bit and we're not.
Despite the chassis, you've got the boost turned up, going flat out right now.
We're going flat out right now. Yeah, Mike had a little bit of trouble with the back marker there for quite a few laps, but he's just got by him, so we'll see what happens in the last few laps here.
So really, it looks like it's Bobby's race to win or lose.
Well, we hope the second.
It's a 14.5-second lead now for Bobby Rahal, but the interval is closing. The question is, does Michael Andretti have enough time here to make up the interval between himself and Bobby Rahal?
Bobby has dropped off to 66 seconds per lap, 1 minute 6 seconds, and with the cushion that he has right now, data speed is not showing it, but it must be around 12. And with just 4 laps to go, make that 14 seconds it's still at. Rahal is definitely in control.
Now it's a 12-second advantage for Bobby Rahal, as there he is, still leading Rick Mears with less than 4 laps to go.
Bobby Rahal, as the friends down in the South would call him, he's had a 7th, a 4th, a 2nd, and a 2nd. So he has had 4 consistent top 10 qualifying runs. That is to say, he did drop out of the first race of the year. He's had 2 top 10s since then.
And this will be his first win since Laguna last year. 6 marches, 1 Lola, and 1 PC16 still in this contest. Laguna Seca last year was the last time that Bobby Rahal visited Victory Lane. His last win on an oval was at the Michigan 250 back in 1986, also late last year. So Bobby Rahal looking to get into the win column for the first time in 1987. As we indicated at the very top of the show, 4 different winners in the first 4 races of 1987, and we could have our 5th winner here this afternoon in just a very few minutes, as we are less than 3 laps now from the conclusion of this race. And coming up right after this race, once again we remind you, from Atlanta, Georgia, it'll be the Southern Nationals NHRA drag racing, so we urge you to stay tuned for that.
Bob, another significant point that we have failed to make yet in this broadcast. Remember what's powering that car? It is not the just the traditional configuration that is a Lola that Bobby Rahal has shifted to this year. The Chevy started out strong. Emerson Fittipaldi in his March Chevy. Mario Andretti looked very strong also, but Bobby Rahal, the Lolas we saw at Indianapolis, had a very perfect configuration for the big ovals, and maybe the Lolas here at Portland were also the right way to go.
Bobby Rahal right now passing Johnny Rutherford, who is in 7th position. Yesterday, when it was announced, there is Michael Andretti, by the way, in 2nd position. He is definitely cutting down the interval. It was up to about 18 seconds. Now it's down to just under 11. Now, when they announced that there might be that possible dog leg built at Michigan to slow the cars down in the Michigan 500, Johnny Rutherford, the defending champion of that race, was not all that happy with that announcement. He's one of those who likes the high-speed ovals. There is Scott Brayton, who was 4th, but has come in for a late pit stop, and I'm not so sure about what it is in something other than just a routine stop.
Well, remember that he is one of the people that we felt was short on fuel. I also feel that Mears, unless he is really cut back, is running close, and I think Brabham would have been close too, but he fell into that group of people that didn't look like they could go all the way in 2 stops.
Well, he is back out on the racetrack, as here comes Bobby Rahal out of corner number 9 and about to receive the white flag, indicating his final trip around this little less than 2-mile racetrack here in Portland. Bobby Rahal is on his final lap. There is 2nd place Michael Andretti, now just about 8 1/3 seconds behind.
Not enough, certainly, for 1 lap. If Bobby goes this race or goes this lap without any type of incident, there's no way that Michael's going to catch him in. We're very convinced that, just as Steve Horn indicated, that Bobby Rahal is just kind of cool. He's just loping around here, the 1.9-mile road course here at Portland International, and Bobby Rahal is going after his first win. By the way, we also visited the Portland Raceway this weekend. There was also super modified race there. We had a Formula Atlantic race, which was won by Dean Hall here at Portland. We'd like to thank Jan Vinkus, who finished 6th in that race, along with Mike Levin and Scott Moore, who has helped us in the booth here today. Had a pretty good afternoon.
Out of corner number 9, here is Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio, onto the straightaway now. And it looks as if, yes, he is going to win the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200, his first win of 1987.
No theatrics, and I'll tell you one thing, it happens so often when this team wins, they seem to make it look very easy. Seldom do you see him coming down out of turn number 4 side by side with anybody. It's always a calculated win. There's always a lot of headwork that goes into it, and when they win, they more often than not devastate the rest of the field, at least psychologically.
That's Rick Mears trying to pull up alongside of Bobby Rahal and congratulate him as Bobby is signaling to the corner workers after having won this IndyCar race here at Portland. And a couple of teams with some very fine performances this afternoon. You've got to mention Jeff Brabham, who did not finish the race but ran a strong 3rd until the late going, and the Penske team. Rick Mears with the PC16 chassis and the Ilmor engine finishes in 3rd position here. Scott Brayton with a nice run, and so did Jose Legarza and Johnny Rutherford 6th and 7th, along with Randy Lewis, who was 8th.
Bob, it did follow the theme that we touched on at the top of the show. This was a weekend of progress. Instead of the rich getting richer, so to speak, or the fast cars streaking away, the field tightened up here this weekend. A lot of people who are looking for more miles per hour, like Tom Snevis, Scott Brayton on the road courses, they found it, and more cars showed the ability that, hey, we might be a contender in the future.
So Bobby Rahal has taken the cool-off lap, and now he's ready to head for victory lane, having won our Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 here at Portland this afternoon. We'll be back to talk with him after this.
The whole last few laps.
We are live in victory lane at Portland, a conversation between Steve Horn and the victor, Bobby Rahal. It was a case of lasting to the finish. You got to finish to win, and there was some concern over tire wear and fuel consumption.
I don't know. I ran pretty hard the whole time. Emerson was tough, but I had a problem with my pop-off valve. I could only run 46 inches the whole race, and they'd get me down the straights. But car ran beautifully. You know, we had a little tire wear problem, but I was hustling. I was driving hard the whole race, and only until the last 10 laps, because when I had that big a lead over Michael, could I afford to relax a little.
So even with tire wear and fuel consumption, had the race been 3, 4, 5 laps longer, you still had them covered?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, when you're 20 seconds ahead with 5 laps to go, there's no point in. They don't give you an extra point for winning by the biggest margin.
A big smile from the guy from Dublin, Ohio. Bobby Rahal wins at Portland.
All right, and finishing second was Michael Andretti. Third was Rick Mears. Fourth, Fabrizio Barbaza, and he started this race 16th. Nice drive for Fabrizio. Scott Brayton, Jose Legarza, Johnny Rutherford, Randy Lewis, and Jeff Brabham, along with Mario Andretti, round out the top 10 here this afternoon. Our Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 from Portland International Raceway has been brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer. By Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. And in part by Mr. Goodwrench. No one knows your GM car better than Mr. Goodwrench. No one. Next Saturday, IMSA GTO racing at 2:30 Eastern Time from West Palm Beach, Florida. Then Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, the GTP Series. And Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, the Winston Cup race from Riverside, California. Coming up next, NHRA drag racing from Atlanta, Georgia. For now, this is Bob Jenkins for Larry Newber and Gary.